The question of how powerful Kong is within the confines of the MonsterVerse is quite a contentious one when you actually delve into the details, but of course the casuals try to wank him to be as powerful as possible. So I'm going to go over where Kong actually scales, because clearly there's over-exaggerators like this guy with the mop on his head, and of course rats like Chronic. So to begin, Kong is of course powerful, right? This isn't really deniable. The only question is who's above him. Obviously, people like Godzilla and Shimo are definitely above him. Anyone who actually thinks Kong is stronger than Godzilla New Empire clearly forgot about the part where Godzilla won again. Yeah, pipe down, mutt. The only other creature that Shimo's really been compared to is Ghidorah in terms of just raw power, destructive ability, and possible threat. It's fair to say that even currently, Ghidorah would still just rip Kong to pieces, same way Shimo did pretty easily. The same book that Kong fans really seem to love very much explains that Kong's performance is like 99% due to the Beast Glove. It's mentioned that Shimo would have probably just bit through his arm if not for the Beast Glove. And on top of that, Kong specifically mentions if he didn't stop Godzilla's atomic breath, he would probably die. So with that in mind, he is not equal to Godzilla either in base or in evolved, doesn't really matter, Shimo, and King Ghidorah. Going back to Godzilla vs. Kong, since people seem to really like arguing with the movie, Godzilla pretty easily defeats Kong the moment he gets angry, with Adam Wingard very much explaining that earlier in the movie, the former two fights were Godzilla not really trying all that hard, going so far as to say that he basically viewed beating Kong to death as a game.
It's almost like a foregone conclusion to a certain degree that Godzilla is going to win, but the real question is Kong going to survive? And if you look at Godzilla really carefully, like, he knows that he's kind of just playing with Kong the entire time. You know, like if you look at the ship battle fight, they have that kind of like moment where Kong is almost drowned and he's like laying on the boat and Godzilla shows up and they're kind of staring each other down. Godzilla's kind of laughing at him and like, okay, you know, like just stay right there and we're good, you know. And I think the whole time, like, Godzilla kind of thinks that they're sort of having fun, you know. If Kong dies, whatever, he doesn't really care, but like he's not really too worried about it. But when that axe shows up at the end, then things get a little bit more serious and he does have to really kind of play hard.
And considering this is the only opponent Godzilla literally chuckles at in the MonsterVerse, I think it's pretty fair to say that this was shown in the film too. Unlike when he's actually mad and he starts just ripping Kong apart. This does mean he was holding back his attacks and letting Kong actually affect him. We know this because when he's actually pissed, Kong punches him right in the gills and he doesn't care. A kick to the face doesn't do anything either, and the only time Kong can do anything at this stage is into the stab wound. Kong fans will literally just lie, even when shown frame-by-frame dissections of Godzilla not bleeding to Kong's punches, therefore Kong stronger than Ghidorah, the Mutas, etc. Even though the Mutas physically ripped into a Godzilla who I could probably argue is stronger than the one Kong faced. And King Ghidorah literally messed up a Godzilla who is absolutely stronger than the one Kong faced via official statements from the creatives. And literally New Empire itself. So with that in mind, Kong is not equal to base form Godzilla either. Even with the Beast Glove, the people who made the Beast Glove concede that Godzilla would still murder him if he felt like it, and they do not know about Godzilla Evolved. Now, we go down to a lower tier of power. Creatures like Mothra, Rodan, Muto Prime, and Mechagodzilla, I think, are interesting to talk about. Mothra objectively outperforms Kong in New Empire, and while the book kind of implies that she evolved, it also then says that it's the same Mothra as King of the Monsters, so do with that what you will if it's a stronger Mothra or not. If it's not a stronger Mothra, then Rodan comparison's very easy. Mothra used her God Rays not even anywhere near evolved Godzilla, and ragdolled him when he was using enough power to completely subdue Beast Glove Kong. So with that in mind, I think it's fair to say that Mothra's higher end attacks could probably actually overpower Kong, which is consistent since Mothra actually interrupts Shimo's beam attack and slaps her in the face, which is better than anything Kong gets in the movie. And while he does interrupt her in the book, this is not shown in the film, with the scene instead being Godzilla's spiral beam doing so. So I think we can say that's just not canon. Some have argued that Kong blocking the ice beam with the Beast Glove is a more impressive feat. Problem is, the Beast Glove literally resists ice, and on top of this, he was stun locked by it. He couldn't do anything about it. Whereas Mothra actually slapped her wings through the beam. She wasn't exposed for long, but she still actually tanked it. So I think we can say New Empire Mothra definitely above Beast Glove Kong. But what about Mechagodzilla? The mechanical terrorist stated, even in New Empire, to be a threat Kong could not beat alone. And that should probably include when he has the normal axe, considering he carries it around with him all times. But this is of course very questionable because, well, the weakened Kong that Godzilla just got done basically murdering was able to physically contend with Mechagodzilla, stop his blows, take his attacks, and hold out long enough for Godzilla to charge the axe. So even the weakened Kong, who basically got crushed by Godzilla earlier, could hold his own against Mechagodzilla physically. I would note, though, Mechagodzilla did not use his thrusters, which definitely boost his attacks, and definitely his speed, the Proton Scream, which overpowered the weakened Atomic Breath at this point, nor his Drill Tail, and the Drill Tail is stated able to actually kill Kong. So he would have actually been able to drill through Kong's skull, meaning MG definitely had the capability to kill the weakened Kong here. The only questionable part is whether or not Kong with his weapons would be unable to stop it. Obviously the charged axe cut through Mechagodzilla like butter, but if he just used his thrusters to escape and then start range bullying Kong, I doubt it would have gone the same way. The Beast Glove, in Kong's own opinion, is less impressive than the axe, but it at least has the benefit that he can't drop it, and it's pretty strong. So, since it was also stated to be a counter to Mechagodzilla, made from mech tech, according to Bernie, you could argue that Kong with the Beast Glove could beat Mechagodzilla. I think if he has both weapons, and the axe is charged, it's a very low difficulty win for Kong. If he just has the Beast Glove, it's a hard victory, because he still has to hit the mech, who can bombard him from range. And if he has just the normal axe, he'd have to really get in there and start physically beating on the mech. Kong is physically stronger, don't get me wrong, and probably more durable. The problem is the mech has ways around this. As for the Muto Prime, this is a powerful monster that nearly killed the 2014 Godzilla when he was probably close to his full power. She has a few statements of being able to affect even the likes of Ghidorah with her attacks. The same Ghidorah that is held as the standard of Shimo at best maybe being above, if not equal to or below. So yeah, Ghidorah's still relevant. I don't want to hear any cope. So if Prime could actually affect Ghidorah with her hits, that could be good scaling. There's a problem though. Being able to affect Ghidorah doesn't really mean much, since Ghidorah could be affected by pretty low level stuff. I mean, even if he just feels the punches, that's not too noteworthy. But if they actually like rocked him, then that'd be noteworthy. That's also her best scaling, really. The only statements that we have otherwise is that she would be more powerful than Kong physically, but slower. It's also mentioned that she could shatter the Mechagodzilla with one of her screams, considering it shattered Godzilla's dorsal plates. Which makes sense, Godzilla is way more durable than the mech. But really, all she has otherwise is being able to tango with Godzilla in his 2014 form, who, to be fair, in his past prime was able to box Shimo and Ghidorah, but that was when the Earth was 10 times more radioactive. So, I'm going to leave that one up to the comments to decide. Do you think Prime would out-hack and strength bully Kong? Or do you think Kong would outspeed and outmuscle the Muto Prime? Other than these monsters though, it's kind of hard pressed to find anyone really above Kong. The only things you could maybe say is that, well, the male and female Muto after an hour gave Godzilla some pretty nasty wounds, and well, yeah, they did weaken Godzilla with their EMPs. Godzilla was also weakened in GVK from spamming like a dumbass and also not even waking up at full power. It's not like Kong scales to full power GVK Godzilla anyway, or evolved, because he literally stepped on him and beat him twice.
Well, and see, like in the last film, Godzilla won from crushing Kong down. That's sort of his like finisher move. But you know, Kong got lucky here because the ground in Egypt gives way and it's like sandy, and so the stomping isn't enough to crush him to death. So that's the reason.
More likely than not, Kong would be above an individual Muto. Now, if they jumped him, I could see them messing him up pretty bad. They can sink their claws pretty deep into him and slash him up. Only other ones I can really think of are like Tiamat being previously arguable above Kong, considering she messed up Dominion Godzilla pretty bad. Although now in New Empire, it's more likely than not that Kong would beat Tiamat. He'd be slashed up for sure, but that said, he's just going to be strong enough to pummel Tiamat into the ground, probably break her jaw, and then she'll be dead. After all, a full power base Godzilla did unironically one-shot her in New Empire. Via the GVK intro, Methuselah is actually placed alongside Rodan and above the Queen Muto, who's above the two from 2014. But that said, Methuselah doesn't have any other feats, with Adam Wingard confirming that this is probably accurate. So if that's the case, then you could argue he's Rodan level, who's above Kong. Even then, Methuselah doesn't have any real win cons other than just brute strength, and Kong can work around brute strength with speed, skill, and weapons. Other than that, though, Kong is stated to be one of the strongest kaiju around, even in New Empire. As mentioned, he would tear Skylar to pieces, who was able to stab into Dominion Godzilla, but then got obliterated by him pretty easily, so there's that. He's mentioned to be the strongest force on Earth a few times, which you could argue put him above Rodan, but Mothra was dead, Ghidorah was dead, definitely doesn't mean Shimo, Godzilla stomped the shit out of him. There's just a lot of problems with those statements, and acts like Kong is relative to Godzilla, which he's definitely not. He got his ribs cracked by being stepped on twice. But with that in mind, he should be above the vast majority of the creatures from the Monsterverse. With speed, that's definitely among the highest in the Monsterverse. The only guys who are faster than Kong, objectively, is the Scar King and Mechagodzilla with his thrusters. That's really about it, actually. Kong is pretty up there, he's just not as powerful as people think. And of course, if you're an idiot who thinks that Kong actually put up a real fight against Godzilla, literally just go watch the damn movie again and you'll see that you're wrong, as for GVK. And then in New Empire, well, he did catch Evolved Godzilla lacking pretty bad and started hitting him with the Kratos combos. That didn't last long. Godzilla would have probably one-shot him with the pink breath. Kong basically admits this. And then he gets stepped on again and almost died. Mothra had to save him. But hey, maybe in 5 movies he'll actually be above Godzilla. But, you know, until that happens, yeah, Wingard literally said that Kong is nowhere near Godzilla in power. I don't know what to tell you.
I've done 2 movies now with Godzilla and Kong, and, you know, I think it's pretty clear where I stand in terms of who's the top dog.